Welcome back to the Going Deeper podcast. It's been a little while, but we're back again. We've had some guest speakers here at Full Life and some traveling and things like that going on. It's a busy time of year for a lot of people, and so today, my dad, Pastor Nick III, is not here, but joining me is an author, a wife, mother, my wife, Brittany Serban. So excited you're here. Woohoo! It's going to be amazing. I'm so glad that you're here today on the Going Deeper podcast. And I want to talk about this last Sunday. I just kind of did a one-off message. Really felt the Lord leading me to talk about going all in and what that means, what that looks like. And we were actually on a cruise, little vacation.
Yeah, we were.
Where the Lord kind of dropped this into my heart and spirit. And I know we kind of dialogued a little bit about it, about the cost to follow Christ. And I think sometimes in culture, we get into this place where when it comes to Christian culture, the gospel is good news and it's free. Salvation is free, but there's a cost to it. There's a cost to growing in the Lord. We can talk about that, but I'd love to hear your thoughts and kind of what you felt from this last Sunday's message.
I mean, I love the message. I'm not biased or anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I particularly did like the moments when you were talking about considering the cost, and the ladder analogy was amazing because even for someone who thinks that they're sold out for Christ, it can be very easy to fall into the things that are going on in our lives, the things that are happening and the things that we have to take care of.
Yeah.
And all too easy, we get caught up in that aspect of everything and forget to put him first.
Yeah.
And it can very easily lead to us doing the splits.
Yeah.
And
Well, to be fair, we both saw another pastor do this with two ladders coming together, and I don't know how he stayed and didn't do the actual splits going up.
he climbed as high as he could.
As high as he could.
You have to choose.
But I even with the analogy and illustration, I really chose to say, this is my platform. So I set the ladder on the floor and kind of made this sort of thing like, this is me. And I think that really resonated with a lot of people because we have platforms on social media. We have a voice that's heard and, in our circles of influence and things like that. And so we kind of see ourselves in our lives, even in our ministry, as a platform. And we kind of put ourselves up here almost like sometimes in an elitism way of like, I'm better than all these other people. But the Lord is calling us to humility and calling us to get up off of our platform, maybe step down off the platform, and then step up onto the ladder that he's called us to climb.
It's actually something God's been talking to me a little bit about recently. And like I said, the part of the sermon that stuck out the most to me was when you were talking about Luke 14 verses 28, and you were talking about, doesn't a man that's going to, sit down and build something, doesn't he sit down and consider the cost?
Right.
And I went back and read more of that. And toward the end, it says in Luke 14:33, it says, simply put, and this is the Message version, simply put, if you're not willing to take what is dearest to you, whether plans or people, and kiss it goodbye, you can't be my disciple. Salt is excellent, but if the salt goes flat, it's useless, good for nothing. And he said, are you listening? Are you really listening? And I get stuck in the fact that I have good intentions. I'm holding on to the dream that God has given me.
Sure.
It's very easy to say, well, God told me that someday I'm going to do this. I'm going to be this. This is what I'm working for. This is my goal. But in doing so, if we're not careful to put him first every single day, then we just start building that platform for ourselves, all for the sake of building what God has called us to.
Right.
So we can very easily be working towards the right thing and be trying to follow God and be trying to live out his plan, but he doesn't really ask us to figure it all out. He doesn't ask us to create the way and, keep pushing forward all the time. That may be what he asked you to do one day, but if you're not asking him each day, what am I supposed to be doing?
It shifts things.
Yeah.
Well, and really not, I love that you said this, but your good intentions may not be God's intention.
Right.
And I think so many times we think, oh, I'm a good person. You know, I have good intentions. Or I even shared this in my message of like, the Lord knows my heart. You know, it's like, oh, God knows my heart, so I'm going to just do this and God will work it all out and make it all better. And, or I'm sure, you know, God will bless this idea that I have. And then we never actually take it to the Lord, or we never actually go to Jesus and say, Lord, is this what you've called me to do? Is this something that and I will say this too, like, I feel like there's a lot of people that maybe they use that mentality to not do things for God, as well as I'm going to do my own thing. And there's really needs to be this balance of, oh, I'm not sure if God told me to do this, so I'm just going to do nothing. And I'm sure God will bless us, so I'm just going to do all the things. There has to be a balance in between. And even what you're saying is every day, can we get into the presence of the Lord?
Yes.
And one of our worship leaders this last Sunday said, you know, we ask, you know, to enter into God's presence, but can we recognize that he's present with us? He's in our own presence. We have to invite him in to where we're at to speak to us. Yeah. Not just us running our mouths to the Lord of all the things that we want to do, but actually stop and say, Lord, speak.
Yeah. Everything comes down to where your focus is.
Yeah.
Because I have found that it doesn't necessarily matter how much you have on your plate, what you're doing, where you're going, as much as it does who you're focused on. And if you're focused on him each day, then you're really going to be running after the right thing. You really can't go wrong. If you're seeking him and you're asking him each day, what is it you want me to do? It's going to look different than the day before, right? I mean, each day is different. God has new things each day. There's new aspects of him that we haven't encountered, and it just keeps going, and he keeps changing. He's not going to repeat the same thing over and over again. Right. So why should we be living as if things should be repeated the same way over and over again?
No, that's so good.
I get stuck in that, even with my devotional time. I'll get up every single morning at 4 or 5 in the morning. I'll be like, I'm doing this for the Lord. This is my time with him. And I'll sit there, I'll tell him all the things, and then I'll be like, oh, I also have to do this and this and this and this. And, I really think that in order to go this direction that God's called me to, I should probably start working on this. And before long, I've completely cut him out.
Yeah. You didn't give God a chance to speak.
Yes.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah. That's good.
And I said before, it doesn't matter how much is on your plate necessarily, as long as you're focused, because you can have 1,000 things going on, but if your focus is on him, it seems like you have one thing to do.
Yeah.
But you can have 1,000 things going on and try to get all of them done so that you can be with him, and never actually get those things done.
Right. Right. No, I mean, it's the same thing in our faith walk. We think we have to do all of these different things in order to be right and perfect standing with the Lord. But no, he's calling us to, bring me the mess, bring me your worries, bring me all the stuff you've got going on. I just think that's so good. I'm finding more and more that sometimes we can enter the presence of God. We can get in our Bible. We can have devotional time like you're talking about. And we really make it all about us. And we make it all about our peace, or we make it all about our comfort. And really and truly, if we can tell whether we're hearing from the Lord if what he's asking us to do makes us uncomfortable.
Yes.
If what he's asking us to do is something like easy or within my sphere of ability or influence or whatever, like, it's very possible that it's just you're taking the easy way out of whatever it might be. If it's not impossible, or if it's not possible without God, then if it's possible without God, I should say, then it's probably not God, right?
Yeah.
And I think so many times we can have that great devotional life, but it never actually change us because we've chosen not to allow the Lord to transform us.
Yes.
And not to challenge us. Like, we're only going to be changed when we're challenged.
It's not the disciplines themselves, and it's not the actions themselves. It's the combination of the two.
Yeah.
That really brings it all together.
Yeah. No, that's so good. I love it. Was there something else you wanted to hit on with All In?
I mean, I took so many good notes.
You took so many.
But I liked the other part that kind of goes along with this a little bit when you said there are things that make us happy but make Jesus second. Is he an afterthought?
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good question for us to ask today, because we were talking about our heart, our intentions, we're striving to be more like him and go his direction, but we can easily be caught in a moment of our feelings, and it can change how we act and react. And in that moment, Jesus can easily slip to second.
Yeah. No, 100%. And again, with the whole comfort thing, sometimes we put our comfort and our feelings and our heart above the Lord.
I should have brought my favorite mug.
Oh, yeah?
My mug says, "Nothing great ever comes from comfort zones."
Ooh, I like that.
It'll preach.
It'll preach all day long. But it's so true in our relationship with the Lord, as we continue to listen, as we continue to hear, as we continue to grow, he has to be first. And that's not easy. Like, that's really, it's really hard. And again, if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. And I think that this is even the struggle that so many people have with believers, is like, you can't have it both ways.
You can't have it both ways.
You can't have your cake and eat it too, type deal. Like, you can't say, and even Jesus is saying this, like, you cannot claim me as your rabbi, as your leader, and not actually follow me. Like, you might be following him, or this was where it got confusing, but it's like, you may be following him around as a fan, and like, oh, it's so cool, like when Jesus, gives me bread and fish, and like, it's the endless buffet, and like, that's so awesome. Oh, it's so cool when Jesus performs miracles, like all these different things that Jesus does. But like, man, to hate my family, again, it's not hate.
To love them less.
To love them less, to sane them, to love them less, that's hard. Because it's not in my nature to put someone else above me.
Right.
Willingly.
If you're not fighting your flesh, then you're not fighting on the right side.
Come on. 100%.
Yeah. You're not fighting on God's side. You're not focused on the right things if you are not having to constantly fight with your flesh.
Yeah. And I think that right there is the fighting the good fight of faith that so many of us go through. There's so many things that God has called us to walk in and to do and to speak, but our flesh is like, no, shut up, don't do this, like, stop.
Yeah.
And that's the battle. Like, that is the battle. And again, we can dream big, and we can look at missions and kingdom and all these different things, but like, in order to actually walk in those things well, it's the battle of the flesh and the heart, the battle of the flesh and the spirit.
Yeah. And the thing that's gotten me recently is that you cannot live in what you did yesterday, because I will be like, yeah, I'm sold out or whatever. I mean, we sold everything we had and we moved to Thailand, and we've given up so much. And when we were first married, I was like, if you don't love me at my worst, then you don't deserve my best.
That's right.
And 9 years later, I have learned and grown more than I've ever thought that I would do in my entire life. And it's been a constant fight and a constant battle, to the point that I thought, what is wrong with me? Why am I constantly having to fight? And now I'm at the place of realizing that that's the sanctification and the growing process. Yeah. I think it was Rich Wilkerson Jr. Who was talking about the gap. He's like, if there is a gap in your life, if you are not where you want to be in life, where God has called you to be in life, that's okay. But it just shows you the room that you have to grow.
You got room to grow.
The room that God has to work within you.
I love it.
And that's the constant state that I'm living in, because it really does take the pressure off. It takes the pressure off of you having to be perfect, having to have it all right, having to have all the answers, having to figure out how to make that dream or that thing come true. You really just get to say, okay, I'm just going to fight with what I have now, and we're just going to grow. Yeah.
This has been Going Deeper, usually the Nick and Nick show, but today it's Nick and Brittany. Baby, love you. This has been awesome. Follow us on Instagram and on Facebook. Check out the message that I preached all in to get more of the context of what we're talking about. But I just feel like, man, we went so deep today, and I pray that God is speaking to you, even as you're listening and watching this. God bless you. God's crazy about you. We'll see you next time.